I want to tell you about the dumbest thing I ever did to my own lawn. For years, every spring, I'd walk into the hardware store and walk out with my arms full. A bag of weed killer, a bag of fertilizer that promised the moon. Some gadget I saw on television. I spent good money, season after season, and you know what my lawn looked like? Thin, patchy, weeds in the low spots, brown in the high spots. The worst looking yard on a block full of nice ones. I was throwing money at it, and it just kept getting uglier. Then one fall, an old groundskeeper I knew, a man who'd kept ball fields green for 40 years, took one look at my yard and told me I had it backwards. He said I was buying things to fight the problem when I should have been fixing what caused it. So I quit buying bags. I followed the simple order he gave me, the same order folks used long before any of these miracle products existed. And by the next summer, my lawn was the thick green one the neighbors were asking about. It cost me a fraction of what I'd been wasting. Today I'm going to give you that exact step by step, the whole thing in plain order, so your lawn finally turns the corner too. Now I'm no agronomist, no scientist. I'm just a fella who's tended his own quarter acre for better than 30 years and made every mistake there is to make. So I'm not going to bury you in chemistry or fancy grass names. This is common sense, the way it was always done, and every bit of it is something you can do yourself over a weekend or two. So let's start with the big idea, because if you get this one thing, everything else makes sense. Here it is. A weedy, ugly lawn is almost never a weed problem. It's a thin grass problem. Weeds are opportunists. They move into the bare, thin, weak spots where the grass gave up. So when you spend all your money spraying weeds, you're treating a symptom and leaving the door wide open for the next batch. The real fix, the cheap fix, is to grow grass so thick and healthy that the weeds simply have nowhere to move in. Fix the lawn, and the weeds mostly take care of themselves. That's the whole secret, and it'll save you a fortune. So before we get to what you should do, let me tell you plainly what to quit buying, because this is where the money goes. Those miracle hose end sprays that promise a green lawn in 3 days. The combo weed and feed bags folks dump on at the wrong time of year trying to fight weeds, and feed grass on a schedule that suits neither one. The gadgets, the tonics, the secret formulas, none of that fixes a thin lawn because none of it touches the cause. You'd think after all these years somebody would have put the truth right on the back of those bags. They never did because there's no money in telling a man to mow taller and leave his clippings. So we're going to do the things that actually work in the right order, starting right now. Which brings us to the very first step, and it's the one folks skip every single time. Before you spend one more dollar on any product, test your soil. You're guessing right now. You're buying random bags hoping something sticks. A soil test ends the guessing. You can get a kit from your county extension office for just a few dollars. Scoop a little dirt, mail it in, and they tell you exactly what your ground has and what it's missing. Most important, it tells you your pH, which is just whether your dirt is sour or sweet. Cool season grass, the kind most of us up north grow, likes that pH somewhere around 6 to 7. If your soil's too sour and acidic, a cheap bag of lime fixes it, and suddenly the fertilizer you were already using actually works. Think about that. You might not have a fertilizer problem at all. You might have a sour dirt problem, and you were buying the wrong thing for years. Scan the QR code on screen right now. Take your phone out of your pocket, open your camera, and point it at the screen. That one $15 test can save you $100 in wasted bags. All right, step 2, and this is my favorite because it's completely free. And it does about half the work all by itself. Raise your mower. Most folks mow their cool season grass way too short, scalping it down like a putting green because they think it'll mean fewer mowings. It's the opposite of what you want. Set that mower up high, around 3 to 3.5 inches. Here's why that little change is so powerful. Tall grass shades the soil, so weed seeds down there never get the sunlight they need to sprout. Tall grass also grows deeper roots, and deep roots find their own water in a dry spell instead of crisping up. So just by raising your cutting height, you smother weeds and drought-proof your lawn at the same time, and it costs you nothing but turning a knob. While we're on mowing, 2 more free things. First, the 1/3 rule. Never cut off more than 1/3 of the grass blade in a single mowing. Take off more than that and you shock the plant, it turns brown, and it spends all its energy recovering instead of growing thick. So if it got tall on you, bring it down over 2 cuttings, not 1. Second, keep that mower blade sharp. A dull blade doesn't cut the grass, it tears it, leaving a ragged white-brown tip on every blade that makes the whole lawn look sickly. A sharp blade gives you a clean cut and a healthier-looking lawn for the price of a quick sharpening once or twice a season. And here's a free one that'll make some of you uncomfortable, because we've all been told wrong. Stop bagging your clippings. When you mow and leave those little clippings on the lawn, they break down fast and feed nitrogen right back into the soil. Free fertilizer. You've been raking up free fertilizer and hauling it to the curb. Now you'll hear folks say clippings cause thatch. They don't. Grass clippings are mostly water and break down too quick to pile up. That's an old wives' tale that's been costing people money and good lawn food for decades. Leave them be and let them feed your grass. Now, I want to stop here for just a second, because everything I just told you, mowing tall, scan the QR code on screen right now. Take your phone out of your pocket, open your camera, and point it at the screen. The 1/3 rule, leaving your clippings, costs you absolutely nothing, and most folks never heard it. And that's exactly why I finally sat down and wrote it all out. It's a little book called The Old Ways, 50 Forgotten Lawn Secrets from America's Greatest Groundskeepers. It's not a fancy science manual, it's 50 cheap, simple, proven tricks the old groundskeepers used before the lawn care companies talked us into spending a fortune. Half of them, like the ones we just covered, are free or close to it. If you're sick of buying bag after bag and getting nowhere, this is the book that gets you off that treadmill. The link to grab it is right down in the description, and that code on your screen right now, just hold your phone camera up to it, and it'll take you straight there. Go on and do it now while you're thinking about it. It'll pay for itself the first weekend you put it to use, I promise you that. All right, back out to the lawn. Step 3 is watering, and this is another place folks pour money and effort straight down the drain. Most people water a little bit every single day. That feels like care, but it's actually training your grass to be lazy. When the water only ever wets the top inch of soil, the roots stay up shallow near the surface, and the first hot, dry week they fry. What you want to do instead is water deep and seldom. About 1 inch of water a week, all at once, or split into 2 soakings, early in the morning before the sun cooks it off. That deep soak pulls the roots down, where the soil stays cool and damp. And a deep-rooted lawn can ride out a drought that turns your neighbor's yard to straw. And to measure that inch, here's the old trick. Set an empty tuna can out on the grass while your sprinkler runs. When the can's got an inch in it, you're done. Costs you nothing, and it stops you from overwatering, which is money and water wasted. Step 4 actually starts with a rake, and this one wakes a tired lawn right up. Over the years, dead grass and roots build into a spongy mat down at the soil line, and folks call it thatch. A little is fine, but when it gets thick, water and food just sit on top of it and never reach the roots, and your lawn feels springy and looks dull no matter what you do. So in the fall, take a stiff garden rake or a dethatching rake and give the lawn a good vigorous raking to pull that dead matting up and out. It's honest work. You'll fill a few bags and the grass underneath can finally breathe again. Do this first and the next step works twice as well. Because next, if your ground is hard as a brick, you've got to let it breathe. And that means aeration. A lot of our lawns, especially over clay or anywhere folks walk and park, get packed down tight over the years. When the soil's compacted, air and water and food just can't get down to the roots. And the grass struggles no matter what you feed it. The fix is core aeration, which is a fancy way of saying you pull little plugs of dirt out all over the lawn to open it up. You can rent a machine for an afternoon, split it with a neighbor, or for a small yard, use a simple manual tool. Do it in the fall. And if you really want to treat your lawn right, spread a thin layer of compost over the top afterwards so it works down into those holes. Your roots will thank you, and everything you do after this works better. Now we come to the step that is the real weed killer, and it doesn't come in a jug, overseeding. This is how you actually get a thick lawn, and fall is the magic window to do it for us cool season folks. The soil's still warm, the air's cooling off, the weeds are winding down, and new grass seed takes root beautifully. So you spread fresh seed over your whole lawn, paying extra mind to the thin. And bare spots. Now here's a money tip that sounds backwards. Don't buy the cheapest bag of seed on the shelf. That bargain bin seed is often old, full of filler, and sometimes carries weed seed right along with it. So you're paying to plant your next problem. buy a decent cool season blend made for your son. And shade once, and it'll outgrow the cheap stuff 3-to-1. That's spending a little to save a lot. For the really ugly bare patches, the ones that make the whole yard look bad, give them a touch more attention. Scratch the dead spot up with a rake so there's loose dirt. Sprinkle the seed a little heavier there, press it down with your foot, or the back of the rake, and scatter a thin layer of soil. Or compost over the top. You want that seed touching dirt, not just sitting on top. So doing all of this right after you aerate is perfect, because those little holes catch the seed and hold it. Keep it damp until it sprouts. And in a few weeks, you've got new grass filling in every gap. Do this one fall after another, and your lawn gets thicker and thicker until there's simply no room left for weeds to grow. That's a weed killer that gets cheaper and works better every single year instead of a product you have to keep rebuying. Step 6 is feeding, and the lesson here is timing, not quantity. This is where people waste the most fertilizer. They dump it on heavy in spring and summer, because that's when the lawn's green and they're thinking about it. But cool season grass does most of its real growing in the cooler months. The most important feeding of the whole year is in the fall, because that's when your grass is building the roots and the energy it'll live on next spring. A lighter feeding in spring to green it up is fine, but heavy feeding in the heat of summer just stresses the lawn and runs off into the gutter. And here's the part that saves you real money. More is not better. Piling on extra fertilizer doesn't give you a greener lawn, it burns it and washes your money away. Follow the rate right on the bag, no more. Half the folks I know could use less fertilizer, time it for fall, and have a far better lawn for less money. Step 7, and you'll love this because of everything we've done so far. By now, you barely have a weed problem. A thick, tall, deep-rooted, properly fed lawn just doesn't give weeds much room. So instead of blanketing your entire yard with expensive weed product twice a year, you simply deal with the few stragglers that pop up. Dig them out by hand if there's just a handful, the old-fashioned way, or spot treat the individual weeds. Whatever you put down, follow the label exactly, because that label's there for your safety and the lawn's. Spot treating uses a fraction of the product and a fraction of the money of carpet bombing the whole place, and you get a better result, because your grass is doing most of the fighting for you. So how do you keep all this straight? You put it on a simple seasonal calendar, and it's easier than you'd think. In spring, you tidy up, mow tall once it's growing, and give it that one light feeding. In summer, you mostly leave it alone, mow high, water deep, and resist the urge to fuss with it in the heat. Then comes fall, and fall is your big push, the season that makes the whole thing work. That's when you aerate, you overseed, and you give it that all-important feeding for the year ahead. 3 or 4 simple jobs spread across the year. That's the whole rhythm. That's how the old-timers kept the best lawns in town without a single miracle product. Now let me be straight with you about what to expect, because I won't ever oversell you. This is not a paint it green overnight trick. You do this through one full season, and you'll see your lawn turn the corner, get thicker, get greener, start crowding out the weeds. By the next summer, it'll be the kind of lawn folks slow down to look at. It takes a little patience. But patience and the right order will beat throwing money at the problem every single time, and it'll keep beating it for as long as you own the place. Picture next summer, your neighbors are still loading bags into their trunks, still spraying, still wondering why their yard looks tired, and yours is thick and deep green, and it barely cost you a thing past a little sweat in the fall. That's not luck. That's just doing the simple things in the right order, the way it was always meant to be done. So if you're tired of wasting good money on a lawn that won't cooperate, do yourself one favor. Don't let this fall slip by, because that fall window is the one stretch of the year where overseeding and feeding really take hold, and missing it sets you back a whole season. Scan the QR code on screen right now. Take your phone out of your pocket, open your camera, and point it at the screen. Everything I walked you through today, plus 50 more cheap, forgotten tricks, is waiting in the old ways. 50 Forgotten Lawn Secrets from America's Greatest Groundskeepers. The link's in the description, and that code's on your screen now. Grab it, get your fall plan set, and your lawn will thank you all next year. I'll see you out by the fence.
Last fall, I overseeded just over 3,000 square feet of thin, patchy, sun-beaten lawn. And by week 6, I had a stand of grass so thick and so deeply green that my neighbor actually pulled his truck over in the road and asked me what I had done differently this year. The funny part is, I didn't spend more money. I didn't water more. Take it across the bare spots, drag a rake over it, and pray for rain. And every fall, I'd end up with the same result. A weak, spotty germination, half the seed eaten by birds, or washed into the gutter, and a lawn that looked maybe 10% better than it did before I started. The breakthrough came when I started reading turf research out of Penn State and watching a few old groundskeepers from local sports fields talk about how they prep seed before it ever hits the ground. There's one small step in their process that almost nobody on YouTube talks about. My fill-in time got cut almost in half, and the color of the new grass came in noticeably darker and richer. That's the hidden trick I'm going to share with you today. And stay with me to the end, because that preceding trick I just mentioned is the one thing that separates a so-so overseeding job from a lawn your neighbors actually stop and notice. Let's walk through it together. Now, before we get into the how, I want to be straight with you, because I made every mistake in the book before I figured this out. For years, I'd wait too long in the season. I'd buy whatever seed was on sale at the big box store, sometimes 3 different brands across 3 different falls. I'd skip aeration because it felt like too much work, and I'd look out at my lawn and wonder why it still looked tired. If you've been doing any of that, trust me, you're in good company. I was right there with you, scratching my head and blaming the weather. Here's the thing. When I finally stopped guessing and started paying attention to what professional groundskeepers do, I realized overseeding isn't really about the seed at all. It's about contact, moisture, and timing. Once that clicked, everything else fell into place. So let me give you the one core idea that ties this whole video together, because once you understand it, the steps are going to make perfect sense. Grass seed needs 3 things to germinate well. It needs direct contact with soil. It needs consistent moisture for about 14 to 21 days. And it needs a soil temperature in the right range, which for cool season grasses like fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, and ryegrass is somewhere between 50 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. That's the whole science. Most overseeding fails not because the seed was bad, but because one of those 3 conditions wasn't met. After testing this approach for 3 full seasons in my own yard, I consistently get germination rates north of 85%. And once you stop fighting the seed and start setting up those 3 conditions on purpose, your lawn really does take care of the rest. It's simpler than you think. All right, let's walk through the actual steps. The first thing you want to do, and this needs to happen about 3 to 4 weeks before your first expected frost, is mow your lawn shorter than usual. I dropped my mower down to about 2 inches for the overseeding cut, which is lower than I'd ever cut during the regular season. The reason is straightforward. Shorter grass lets sunlight reach the soil's surface, and it gives your new seed a fighting chance to make contact with bare ground instead of getting tangled in tall blades and dying up there. Once you've cut it short, bag those clippings. Don't mulch them back in. You want a clean surface. Then take a stiff garden rake or a leaf rake and work the thin and bare areas, scratching up the top 1/4 inch of soil. You're not trying to till the lawn. You're just breaking the surface crust so seed can settle in. Here's where most people go wrong. They skip this part because it feels tedious. But this is the difference between seed that germinates and seed that sits on top of dead thatch and never roots. Now, with your lawn cut short and the surface scratched up, the next thing you want to do is aerate. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is the single highest leverage step in the whole process. You can rent a core aerator from your local hardware store for about $70 to $90 for a half day. Run it over your lawn in 2 passes, the second pass perpendicular to the first. What this does is pull plugs of soil out of the ground, leaving thousands of little holes that act like perfect seed pockets. Water gets down to the root zone, oxygen reaches the soil microbes, and your new seed has somewhere protected to fall. The conventional approach is to dethatch with a power rake, which tears up your existing lawn, is core aeration. It's gentler, it works deeper, and the soil plugs break down on their own within about 2 weeks. Just leave them on the lawn. They're free fertilizer. The biggest mistake people make, and trust me on this one because I made it for years, is buying a different bag of seed every season. You end up with a patchwork lawn where one section is rye, another is fescue, and a third is some no-name contractor mix. The colors don't match, the textures don't match, and the lawn looks uneven no matter how well you mow it. For cool season lawns in zones 3 through 6, I recommend a tall fescue blend, or a fescue and bluegrass mix from a reputable brand. For warm season lawns in zones 7 through 10, you're typically overseeding with perennial ryegrass over Bermuda for winter color, or sticking with your base species. Whatever you choose, look at the label. You want a germination rate above 85% and a weed seed content below 0.5%. For application rate, you want about 4 to 6 pounds of seed per 1,000 square feet for overseeding. Not 8, not 10. More seed doesn't mean more grass. It means more competition between seedlings, and they choke each other out. Load that seed into a broadcast spreader, set it to the rate the bag recommends, and walk the lawn in 2 passes, the second pass perpendicular to the first, just like you did with the aerator. Before we get into watering and fertilizing, I want to pause for just a second because what I'm showing you today is one piece of a much bigger system I've put together for homeowners who are tired of fighting their lawn every season. If you struggle with weeds the way I used to, with clover taking over in spring and crabgrass showing up in summer, I put together a guide called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol. It's a day-by-day plan that walks you through identifying the 7 most common lawn weeds, exactly which products to use, when to apply them, and how to keep those weeds from coming back next year. It also has a full seasonal maintenance calendar, so you're never guessing what to do next. You can grab it for $17 right now, down from $47, by scanning the QR code on your screen or clicking the link in the description. All right, let's keep going. Once your seed is down, the very next thing you do, and I mean within an hour or so, is apply. This is non-negotiable. Starter fertilizers are formulated with a higher phosphorus content, usually something like a 12-18-8 or a 16-25-12 ratio. And that middle number, the phosphorus, is what fuels root development in young seedlings. Regular lawn fertilizer has almost no phosphorus. And if you use it on new seed, you can actually burn what's germinating. Apply your starter at the rate listed on the bag, which is usually about 3 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet, and put it down with the same broadcast spreader you used for your seed. Don't overlap your passes too much. You don't need a heavy coat. You just need even coverage. Now watering. This is where most overseeding jobs live or die. New seed needs to stay consistently moist for the first 2 to 3 weeks. Not soaked, not sopping wet, just damp like a wrung-out sponge. The experts will tell you the seed can never dry out. And while that's the ideal, I'm going to be honest with you. None of us are home all day with a hose. What I do, and what works for almost every homeowner I've helped, is water lightly twice a day. Once in the early morning before work, and once when I get home in the late afternoon. Each watering is short, maybe 10 to 15 minutes per zone, just enough to keep the top inch of soil damp. If you get a couple of rainy days in there, that's a gift. Skip your watering for those days. The biggest mistake I see is people watering too deep too early, which washes the seed downhill and leaves bare patches at the top of the slope. Light and frequent. That's the rule for the first 3 weeks. After germination, you can taper down to longer, deeper waterings every other day, which trains the roots to grow downward. While you're waiting for your seedlings to come in, the most important thing you can do is leave the lawn alone. Stay off it. Keep kids and pets and lawn equipment off the new areas for at least 4 full weeks. I know it's hard, especially if you've got a big yard, but every footprint compacts the soil and breaks young roots. Don't mow until your new grass is at least 3 to 3.5 inches tall, which usually means waiting 4 to 5 weeks after seeding. When you do that first mow, make sure your mower blade is sharp. A dull blade tears young grass right out of the ground instead of cutting it cleanly. I put a fresh blade on my mower every fall before the first cut on new seed. And trust me on this one, it makes a real difference. Bag your clippings for the first 2 or 3 mows. After that, you can go back to mulching. Now, before I get to the bonus tip I promised you at the beginning, I want to talk about a few common patterns I see homeowners fall into, because avoiding these will save you a whole season of frustration. The first pattern is overseeding at the wrong time of year. People get the urge in spring, when the lawn looks rough after winter, and they dump seed down in April or May. The problem is, soil temperatures are still climbing, weed pressure is at its peak, and your young grass is going right into the heat of summer with no root system. Fall is the answer. Late August through mid-September for most of the country. The soil is still warm, the air is cooling, weed competition is dropping off, and your new grass has all autumn and the following spring to establish before summer stress hits. The second pattern is over-applying seed. I see homeowners put down 10 or 12 pounds per 1,000 square feet, thinking they're going to get a thicker lawn. What actually happens is the seedlings come up so densely that they can't develop strong individual root systems, and the whole stand thins out within a few months. Stick to the rate. 4 to 6 pounds per 1,000 for overseeding is plenty. The third pattern, and I did this myself for years, is skipping the starter fertilizer to save $20. Don't. Starter fertilizer pays for itself many times over in faster germination and stronger root development. This is one place where the cheap option is genuinely the expensive option in the long run. And the fourth pattern is giving up too soon. New grass takes a full season to mature. You're going to see germination at 2 to 3 weeks, real coverage at 6 weeks, and a lawn that genuinely fills in by the following spring. If you overseed in September and your lawn doesn't look magazine perfect by October, that's normal. Be patient. Give it one full season before you judge the results. All right, here's the trick I promised you at the beginning, and this is the one nobody talks about. It's called pre-germinating your seed, and it's what I learned from old-school sports field groundskeepers who use it to overseed baseball outfields and football pitches. Here's what you do. 3 to 5 days before you plan to spread your seed, take it out of the bag and put it in a 5-gallon bucket. Cover it with cool water, just enough to submerge the seed by about an inch, and let it soak for 24 hours. Then drain the water off, but keep the seed damp. I usually mix it with about an equal volume of damp peat moss, or cocoa coir at this point, just to keep moisture even and prevent clumping. Stir it once a day. Within 3 to 4 days, you'll see the seeds start to swell, and some will even crack open with a tiny white root tip starting to emerge. When you spread that seed onto your prepared lawn, you're not waiting 14 days for germination. You're waiting 3 to 5. The seed has already started the hardest part of the process indoors, in perfect conditions, where birds can't eat it and dry weather can't kill it. Your visible green-up happens almost twice as fast. Your germination rate jumps, and because the seed roots down so quickly, you get a much thicker, more uniform stand of grass. The only catch is you have to keep the soil very moist for those first few days after spreading, because pre-germinated seed will die fast if it dries out. So plan your overseeding for a stretch of mild, cloudy weather, or be ready to water lightly 3 times a day for the first week. After that, you go right back to the twice-a-day schedule. I tested this for 2 seasons before I trusted it, and now I won't overseed any other way. That's the hidden trick that takes a lawn from average to emerald. So that's the full method. Mow short and clean up. Scratch the surface and aerate. Choose one quality seed and stick with it. Apply at the right rate. Put down starter fertilizer. Water light and frequent. Stay off the lawn and pre-germinate if you really want to take it to the next level. If today's video helped you see overseeding in a new way, the 30-day weed kill protocol is the natural next step. Because here's the thing. The best overseeding job in the world won't save your lawn if weeds are choking it out by next June. The protocol gives you the exact day-by-day system I use. including pre-emergent timing for spring crabgrass, post-emergent application techniques for clover and dandelion, spot treatment methods for stubborn perennial weeds, identification photos for the 7 most common lawn weeds, and a full seasonal calendar, so you know exactly what to do every month of the year. It's written in plain English. No fluff, just the plan. $17, down from $47. Scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description, and I'll see you on the inside. If this video helped you out, do me a favor and leave a comment letting me know what your lawn looks like right now and what you're hoping to fix this fall. I read everyone. Hit subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care of that lawn, and trust me, it'll take care of you.